A very good morning to you all. My name is Nyawera Gitaka, and I would love to welcome you to the Earth Optimism Nairobi Virtual Summit. The summit starts today and goes on until 4th of April. We have some amazing activities and events lined up for you throughout the week. For example, Stories of Hope. These are some amazing stories from individuals, communities, and organizations that are doing some great work on different fronts in environment and conservation across the country. Just how much do you know about shoe bills or bats, and even the use of DNA technology to fight wildlife crime? These are just some of the amazing stories lined up during our Earth Optimism Virtual Summit. Be sure to join us to get inspired into action. First of all, let us hear from Anthony Kuria, Head of Tropical Biology Association Africa Office, on what Earth Optimism is all about.
My name is Anthony Kuria, the Head of African Office of the Tropical Biology Association based in Nairobi. I'm very pleased to be welcoming you to the 2021 Earth Optimism event to happen here in Nairobi, Kenya. When you think about everything happening around us, the fast-paced loss of species, increasing speed to climate change, and even the challenges we are having with COVID pandemic, it's very easy to despair. But the feeling of despair may make us not to think about how we can respond to some of these challenges. Earth Optimism is a global event that seeks to change the conversation from one focusing on problems to solutions, from sense of loss to hope, as we talk about the environment and conservation. Being optimistic does not mean we ignore all the challenges that we are facing, but rather it uplifts us and inspires us to engage more proactively as we try to make the world a better place. Already, there is a growing number of examples of improvements in the health of species and habitats, along with benefits to human well-being. And it's these success examples that we'll be discussing and celebrating during the Nairobi Earth Optimism event. The overarching theme of Nairobi Earth Optimism event is restoration and people. This is in line with the UN Decade on Restoration and Earth Days Restore Our Earth themes. Through the Nairobi Earth Optimism event, we'll be bringing stories drawn from ordinary people who are doing extraordinary work to conserve the environment within their own communities. From the coast, we'll be telling you about a community in Kwale that is selling carbon credits for mangrove forest to improve their lives, get clean water, and catch fish from the ocean. Further inland, we'll be showing you how a community is digging up barren land to bring back grass for their own livestock. And in Nyahururu, a community is actually coming together and taking action to save the endangered grey-crowned cranes, an iconic species that's found in this particular area. In Mount Kenya, a community has taken action to conserve their forest, which is an important source of water for the Ewaso Nyiro River. And here in Nairobi, we'll be showing you how efforts by youth groups to restore Nairobi River is benefiting from simple actions happening around Ondiri and Rongiri Dam. While you enjoy all these stories of hope, we invite you to share your stories and join us in discussion and tell us how you are contributing to this change. Earth Optimism is open to all. And I must say that there are sister events that are happening globally, including one that will be happening at Rio de Janeiro, and one that's being run by the Cambridge Conservation Initiatives, who are actually supporting us and who will be showcasing some of the stories of hope from Nairobi. Earth Optimism Nairobi is hosted by the Tropical Biology Association in partnership with the National Museums of Kenya, Wildlife Direct, East Africa Wildlife Society, Wildlife Clubs of Kenya, Tony Wild, as well as Wetland International, the East African office. And we can also not forget to recognize our sponsors, the Cambridge Conservation Initiative, A.V. Levintis Foundation, and the Tangled Bank Studios, who have given funds that have made this event a success. Also, we want to thank everybody who has contributed to making this event a success. I hope through the Earth Optimism Nairobi, You are going to learn something and be inspired moving forward. Thank you, and I wish you all the best during this week.
Here's a taste of what to expect throughout the week from our stories of hope.
First, trust was registered in 2004, and that's when Garendare was formed. From that time, all the kind of crimes, all the kind of illegal activities that were taking place during that time have been actually disappearing slowly by slowly as a result of people coming together and bringing out ideas on conservation, ideas on community development.
Garendare Forest is a home of several species of animals, and it is also a home of unique species of trees. So our work is to protect the forest, to ensure that nobody is cutting down a tree, or nobody is interfering like in illegal activities like poaching.
Tunafurahia Garendare Forest na hiyo security yake, hiyo security imewekwa huko kwa ajili imezuia hiyo msitu kuharibu.
There is hope in conservation. When communities come together and own the resource, there is hope for them to get more benefit, not necessarily the direct benefit of charcoal burning, direct benefit of felling for post or logging, but other indirect benefits actually keep the people together.
I see a kid going to school because the money they are using or the desk they are using are coming from mangrove. I see the water. We are serving, the village has 7,000 people. 5,000 of those people, you go to the whole village, they are using tap water. That tap water comes from the carbon money. It's not a myth that carbon money can transform a village.
Mko Pamoja is the first project in the world to conserve mangroves through the sale of carbon credits. It is verified by Plan Vivo standards to sell about 2,500 tons of carbon in the voluntary carbon market. In terms of energy, 70% of coastal communities rely on mangroves for energy, that is firewood and construction poles, and they are also important in terms of fishery production and shoreline protection. So because of this, their loss is very critical, and so the project started so that it can continue to sustain the supply of these ecosystem goods and services.
Mikoko na samaki na uhusiano, sababu tangu kwanza tufungie mikoko kukatwa, faida ya samaki tunaipata, sababu samaki wanapata chakula. Kwa hiyo samaki sahihi sio adimu kama vile tulivyokuwa mwanzo.
So in essence we say Mikoko Pamoja is a very good example of what we call a triple win. A win for environment, a win to the community, a win to biodiversity.
We have a river here that comes directly from this wetland. It's called Nyongara, and it used to be very dirty. Today, if you go there, you'll even be tempted to drink water from it.
Birding enthusiasts, they're now able to come here and take a walk around the wetland to watch birds, monitor the ecosystem, count birds and everything, and it's a tourism site as well.
We consider Ondiri a very significant wetland. First of all, the location, it's very unique where it is located. It is just adjacent to an urban area, which is Nairobi, which is ever growing, and therefore water demands are going up continuously, and also Kikuyu Township. But most important in terms of environment is that Ondiri is the source of Nairobi River.
To begin with, people were very surprised when we started chopping down all their trees. And I said, please give us 20 years and we'll show you something completely different. And it actually surprises people now. Now they come and see the forest and they think that forest has always been there. But actually what we've done is created an indigenous forest.
50% of the seed we plant in our nursery, we get it from our forest. So that's why I was saying it's important to have a forest, because it becomes a gene bank, a live gene bank, and you get seed from it. And that's important for further works of conservation and planting.
Watu ambao wanakubali kupanda hiyo miti upande wa Mai na kule kwingine, unakuta ya kwamba nini imebadilika, hiyo hali ya anga imebadilika. Kwa hivyo ninajua hali ya kupanda miti tena inaleta, yani mchanga hata inakuwa mzuri.
Mimi mmoja ya ile watu walikuwa wanaiba huko Ngorogo kwa siwa mabata hivi. Tulikuwa tunarogota, sisi wote tulikuwa tunarogota mayai. Si hakukuwa mtu mmoja. Tulikuwa wakati tunaamka na maumbwa. Tunaingia huko kwa maana sikuwa najua kama ati hii kitu ni ya serikali. Kujua muhimu wa hii kitu ati inaweza kukuja kutufaidisha sisi.
Nilijikaza kabisa. Hata kuna wakati nilikuwa natukana kwa hii kijiji. Juu wanakuja wanaachilia ng'ombe, zote zinaingia wapi? Huko. Haya, hii ni maumbwa, wanaenda wapi? Huko. Hata naitwa nini? Kuwinda. Wanaenda wanawinda hii korongo. Wanaenda wanachukua, wanaenda wanauza.
Kologo mimi najua umuhimu wake. Tena najua zinaisha duniani. Kwa maana hii kologo imetega mengi sana, mayai 4. Imetoka mingi sana, 4-3. Kiada kwa hizi bata zingine zinafanya mayai kutoka 15, 18. Hivyo kologo anatoa mayai madogo sana.
I don't think there is another species that the community knows more and how to protect it more than the grey crown crane.
Actually, the first time we came here, we were only welcomed by the smell of burning charcoal, and most of the trees here were down by then. That can be initiated in other dry areas, so I will call upon other people all over the world to embrace this project and start it in other dry areas, so that we can restore back the land that we destroyed. As we are pastoralists, and where there's grass, there's food for us. So it's something that I want to see in future. And for this project, I want it to be a successful story, such that it can be extended to other areas in Kugurupran, so that we have more grass coming up for our livestock.
Other than snakes, bats are the most hated group of mammals on Earth. And what we are doing basically is to try and demystify some of those beliefs and tell them the facts about these very important animals. So farmers save millions of dollars annually in unused pesticides, in avoided crop losses because of what the bats are doing, naturally controlling insects. That's number one, which is very crucial. And therefore we've reached out to different communities, especially in this era of COVID-19, to tell the communities that indeed they are not, because there was that belief that they are indeed spreading. The word there is spreading the virus to people. They are not. Indeed, SARS-CoV-2 is actually being spread from contact, human contact, not animals or birds to people.
Go back to what our grandparents used to do. These foods that they used to eat. Relearn them, because I know most of us have forgotten those foods. We need to relearn those foods. How are they grown? What are the benefits of this food? Why were they culturally important or appropriate? I think once we do that, we reconnect with our cultural ways of growing food, then we have to make sure that now other people are also accepting this as food, because most young people that I met, particularly kids, when you tell them nduma ngwashe, they don't know that as food. What they know is bread, toast. That's what they know as food. Growing food in a healthy way. People having access to safe food. These farmers not only grow food for themselves, but they sell it to us consumers within cities such as Nairobi. So if they're able to grow food in a safe way, then it means that we can also have access to safe food. And that means that our health is protected. We don't have access to food that can actually harm our bodies, and which is very, very essential for our growth, for the nourishment of our bodies. We need to start making local foods, kienyeji foods, cool. And not just local foods, but local foods that have been grown in a safe way. seeing those children, those little children, run to the garden to get vegetables, because most of them come from really poor backgrounds. Sometimes they miss meals. So when I see them getting vegetables from those little gardens, it gives me joy. I see them like they enjoy coming to the garden. Sometimes they plant stuff on their own because we normally have planting sessions. So when I come the next week, I see them every week. So when I come the next week, they tell me, "Oh, Teacher Claire, we planted this. So do you think it's okay to plant them near here?" I've already sparked that interest in them. So that interest, it's my work to nurture them, make sure that interest does not die. Those are some of the things that really give me joy. Making sure they have food, they have an interest in nature, they continue to learn about nature. It really gives me a lot of joy.
One thing about Earth Optimism is that we always seek to inspire individuals, communities, and organizations in terms of environment and conservation. We're always keen to demonstrate that there is hope amidst all the challenges and losses that are happening. What better way than to listen in on an inspiring talk from Wanjira Maathai, Vice President and Regional Director, World Resources Institute, who is following in her mother's footsteps and fighting for nature.
My name is Wanjira Maathai. I'm the Vice President and Regional Director for Africa at the World Resources Institute. I'm also the chair of the Wangari Maathai Foundation. I was in public health, that's what I studied, and worked in business for a little while. And I decided I think it was in 2000 to help out my mother's work, just doing odd jobs, helping with this and that. And that sort of led me to get sucked into what she was doing on a daily basis. And literally, I would say in 2000 that was. So 20 years later, here we are. I'm now really into that work. But what I really like is it was an evolution of that work. I just really fell in love with the complexity of it and how it didn't matter what the issue was. The fundamentals were generally the same. You were dealing with communities, you were dealing with behavior often, you were dealing with issues of misinformation or lack of information and self-empowerment, and that most things can be addressed if you are well-informed and you're motivated. And so that became, for me, the heart of the Greenbelt Movement's work was really compelling. And that's how I sort of got sucked in, and then continued working with the movement, and then also started working with the Wangari Maathai Foundation when we started it, and now with the World Resources Institute, and really around very similar issues around sustainability, development, human development, and economic development now. Optimism is a choice, and so I choose to be optimistic, but we don't have much of a choice when it comes to the environment, because the environment is the platform on which all life exists. And so we now understand that we have pushed our environment to the extreme, and we are starting to see impacts that are extreme around drought, around heat, around fires in some parts of the world, and just a complete disruption of the peace and calm that seemed to be before the last 20, 30 years. And I think that is a real reminder and a wake-up call that we have to be optimistic about the possibilities because we know it can be better, but we have to be urgent in our action about what we can do, because the science is telling us, and those who follow the science will say, that we are dangerously close to irreversible damage, and that is where we don't want to go. So optimistic, yes, but cautiously optimistic, I would say, that we keep doing what we need to do. A country like ours that is largely well-vegetated, cities like Nairobi, but we're very fast plowing through the last green spaces we have, as if it doesn't matter. That's what we need to wake up to. We need to wake up to the reality that this is what cushions us. This is what protects us from the worst of climate change, for example. And so we cannot mess around. So I am optimistic, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I feel a sense of urgency to arrest the sort of disruptive, distractive, exclusive development that is happening. Well, I think I'm proud of the support that I continue to give, I guess, to the Greenbelt movement, I would say. I think the Greenbelt movement, a local grassroots organization that has been there for so many years, continuing the good work that it started, but evolving into some new spaces now. But I think perhaps the peak is the Wangari Maathai Foundation's work, looking at what the relevance of Wangari Maathai's life is to young people. We are a largely young population. The entire African continent, the average age 19 years old. That's crazy. So how do we inspire that generation to do better than we've done? To aspire, to inspire, but also to be people of character, to be people who are creative and innovative and leading from a place of purpose. So that, I think, is a really important lesson from Wangari Maathai's life. Today we enjoy work that Wangari Maathai did 40 years ago. Saving Karura Forest was a long 10-year journey. Saving Uhuru Park, similarly. Dangerous journeys. We don't even have that to fear. We could do much better. And I think that is the joy I get from seeing the foundation blossom and seeing young people begin to take leadership. Young people begin to say, we are the leaders, and tomorrow is today. We don't have much time to waste. Communities have done a really good job of rising to the challenges they face, innovating in local circumstances and making things work. So that has been really inspiring. But I also know that policy follows success. So if they see that, Kiambu County is doing really well on agriculture, policy will sit up and pay attention. So the extent to which we can have really good front-runner, good examples, and that's why I'm excited about the devolution, the county government system. These counties can be innovators and allow for policy to follow, because sometimes that's what it takes. You need to have some really good examples, really good praxis, and then you get policy following. One of the things that inspires me is that we do have really good examples of times when individuals have been such potent agents of change. People who have stood up and made a huge difference. Wangari Maathai stands out for us. We have Karura Forest, thanks to her courage, thanks to her wisdom, that we as a city need green spaces. We have Uhuru Park, we have Jivanji Gardens, and many other green spaces around the city. The good news is those are still here. However, the bad news is they are still under assault. And that's where we all come in. We have to continue to protect and stand up for these green spaces. We have to support our young people who are organizing around organizations like the Wangari Maathai Foundation and the Daima Green Spaces, a coalition of multiple organizations that are standing up to say no to the destruction of green spaces. We need green spaces to be able to breathe in our cities. Because even as we address some of the bigger issues of our time, there is one looming one, air pollution, that is going to continue to undermine our health if we don't take care of it. So I would say the most important thing, especially for our urban spaces, is to ensure that we protect the green spaces around us. And each of us can be a messenger, either to people we know who are mapping out those highways and driving them and plowing them through the parks, or those of us who are just in this work and can influence policy. Let's protect the green spaces. And I just love that right here in the museum, we have a nice pathway that leads all the way to Michuki Park. Not many people know that. We need more of them. The greenways are going to be the lifeline for cities like ours, that we can walk, that mobility will not have to be about getting on a car and going somewhere, that we can actually walk in a green space all the way into town from wherever we are. That's the dream. And you and I have to be part of it.
Our focus today is on wetlands, very important ecosystems for our livelihoods. We're going to watch a video on how a community in Kikuyu is preserving and conserving the source of Nairobi River, Ondiri wetlands. The community has embarked on this initiative for the past 5 years, and now the water from Ondiri wetland is cleaner than before. And cranes are even back. And there is a recreational space at Ondiri wetland for the community and residents of the area to enjoy.
This is the biggest water reservoir we have in Kikuyu constituency. It is the source of all the water that the residents consumes.
We consider Ondiri a very significant wetland. First of all, the location, it's very unique where it is located. It is just adjacent to an urban area, which is Nairobi, which is ever growing, and therefore water demands are going up continuously, and also Kikuyu Township. But most important in terms of environment is that Ondiri is the source of Nairobi River.
This area is quite important to me because I've been working on the Nairobi River Basin from Korogosho, Mathare River, Ngong River, and it reached a certain point where I was asking myself, I think we are wasting a lot of time in cleaning this river from the lower stage of the river. So I needed to find out where this waste is coming from. Why is it that when this river reaches at the lower stage in Korogosho, it's usually black? So as I was digging information about where the river starts is when I came to learn of Ondiri wetland, and I came to check on its state and found out that it was in a dire state. It equally needed help in order to raise its conservation status, make the community appreciate the resources that they have, and also make the policy makers, both the national government and in the county government, to come on board to bring in the resources in order to be able to protect this resource that we have here called Ondiri.
The main problem has really been encroachment and degradation from agricultural activities. So people will really build greenhouses along the wetland, use the water without any limits, and also discharge their effluents into the wetland, and that will really lead to soil erosion and also growth of macrophytes that are brought about by the fertilizers and the chemicals they use in their farms. People were harvesting vegetation from the bog and they burn the whole place so that the vegetation can regenerate. Also, people had really planted eucalyptus trees along Ondiri. These eucalyptus trees are known like the green cancer, where these trees normally absorb a lot of water.
We used to meet just around 4 people, but with time the interest started coming in. Members of the community came in, the RUA, the Water Resources Users Association of this place was revived.
When we started this work, we had very dirty water oozing out of this wetland. We have a river here that comes directly from this wetland. It's called Nyongara, and it used to be very dirty. Today, if you go there, you'll even be tempted to drink water from it. We didn't have some birds that are called grey-crested crane birds. These are indicators of a healthy wetland. We have several of those birds. When we started our conservation journey in 2016, there were not those birds. Fodder harvesters had field day every day because they could come and harvest a lot of fodder from here. But now the wetland is intact.
Currently, we have farmers or the riparian landowners who had actually planted eucalyptus trees along the bog. Some of them have opted to cut them down.
The community is benefiting from the wetland. Now they've got a place to come and rest. The people are now able to get clean water. As you can walk around the wetland, now people are fetching water to go and for washing their clothes, for using the water is now they're now able to use that water for domestic use. Yeah, students or birding enthusiasts, they're now able to come here and take a walk around the wetland to watch birds, monitor the ecosystem, count birds and everything, and also it's a tourism site as well.
Gazettement is one of the ways or the tools or the methods we use to give wetlands in the country enforced protection. So when I mean by gazettement is we designate an area that is fragile, that serves a big population of people, and we decide that as a country, we want to set it aside as a national resource. So gazettement is basically just setting out that resource to be a national resource, as opposed to just a resource of the people living around there.
So by protecting this, it means being able to have so many lives sustained downstream.
So what exactly are we expecting from Earth Optimism Nairobi Virtual Summit? Here are the highlights of the week. Here are some highlights of the week. Today, as we focus on reasons of hope, we are also focusing on conserving wetlands. Later afternoon, our story of hope will be about creating a safe haven at Rungiri Dam. Tomorrow, we look at sustainable food systems and climate change. We have an amazing lineup of talks starting 10 a.m. from sustainability to creating better food systems. How do you enjoy your traditional African vegetables and innovations about food systems for Africa in the future? Later afternoon, we are going to be showcasing two amazing stories of hope. Mikoko Pamoja, a triple win for the environment. And we also look at permaculture. How do you live off your land? On Wednesday, we focus on people in action for the environment. We start with a series of amazing talks in the morning from how policy inspires community conservation. And we are going to be having two amazing stories of hope, conserving Garendare, an amazing episode about Laikipia leopards, courtesy of Wildlife Direct and Wildlife Warriors. Later afternoon, we showcase some amazing stories on bringing back grass and restoring forests, the story of Brackenhurst. Thursday will be all about saving species and habitats, and we're going to be looking at some amazing species from conserving bats, butterflies of Uganda, and saving frogs. Later afternoon, we showcase the story of crane conservation volunteers, all about saving cranes. Later afternoon, we showcase a story about crane conservation volunteers, and we showcase two amazing stories from our sister event, Earth Optimism Cambridge. Be sure to join us. Friday will be all about research and capacity building. Tropical Biology Association takes us through that. And our Story of Hope video will be all about the use of DNA technology to fight wildlife crime. That'll be in the morning. In the afternoon, we have the Biophilic Film Festival and a talk about the role of film to tell conservation stories. On Saturday, we ask you to go out there and enjoy all the beauty and all the amazing things that nature has to offer. Later afternoon, we connect with Earth Optimism Cambridge and share 3 of their amazing stories: butterflies as agents of change, stubborn optimism, and ocean optimism. Be sure to connect with us as we enjoy a feature on birding. Connect with us throughout the whole week on all our social media forums on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and our YouTube channel. That is Earth Nairobi on Twitter, Earth Nairobi on Instagram, Earth Optimism Nairobi on Facebook, and Earth Optimism Nairobi on YouTube.